Hey guys, good morning. Jim here with Marty. Just getting ready to show you another video here, instructional video, and today we're going to actually install a top end. All right. So what we want to start with is obviously this has already been disassembled here, and we are ready to reassemble. But once you get the motor disassembled, the first thing you want to do is you're just going to want to clean all the surfaces and make sure that everything's prepped and ready to go back together. So what I like to use is a little flat scraper here, a little razor blade, and just go around and I like to go ahead and shove my little rags inside here so I'm not getting stuff all down inside the crankcase. Once you get that all in there, then you can take, now you can see these are already nice and clean. I've already done this so we can save time in the video, but you're going to want to just scrape the gasket material off of your base gasket surface here, okay? And then you're going to also scrape it off of your base of your cylinders. Now these are nice and clean because we just got these bored. They're super great. So, but you're going to clean these up, and once you get the gaskets scraped off, then I like to use like a small, light bristle wire brush, and I like to just go along here, and I like to just get all the residue and the glue or whatever off. Make sure you get all around here. Make sure it's nice and clean so that the gasket surfaces look like this, okay? You're gonna do the same thing with the cylinders. Just go along here, make sure they're nice and clean, all right? And you're gonna do the same thing with the head, because the head's probably gonna have some residue on it. So just lightly scrape the head. Now, one thing on the head, you want to make sure that there's no edges that are dinged up on the side or whatever, so that it seals nice and flat. So run your fingernail across there. If you catch anything, you can take like a flat, small flat file, and just lightly take the edges down here. As you can see, if you look closely, there's a couple spots, like there's a spot right there and a couple little spots here where sometimes they'll get a little ding or something here and there. You just take those down nice and flat, and get everything prepped and ready. Now, and then you blow it all out with air. Make sure you don't have any debris or particles down inside your motor here. Make sure this is all clean. I like to use like a brake cleaner and a rag. Make sure everything's nice and clean. Make sure your surfaces from the top of your cylinders are nice and clean, same as you're doing for your head here. So once your surfaces are prepped, all right, the next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna prep your cylinders. Now, you've either honed your cylinders or you've bored your cylinders to your new pistons here. And what you need to do with these is you need to make sure that these cylinders are nice and clean. And the way you clean them and get them ready for brand new pistons, or the way I do it anyways, is take some two-stroke oil, like mix oil, okay? And I use a syringe. You can just use a bottle of it with your finger or whatnot. And guys, put some of these gloves on, because these cylinders' edges are sharp. I can't tell you how many times I've been mixing blood with oil in my cylinders, so don't do that, all right? So use some of these little gloves, and what you do is you just take a little bit, and you can be kind of liberal with this stuff, and you just take your finger and you just rub it on here, okay? And make sure it's nice and lubricated, and you're just gonna rub it around. And what this oil does, okay, now I'm gonna get some more on there. What the oil does is it gets all the dirt and the grime and whatever from boring these cylinders out, and it sticks to the oil. And so we're going to get it all nice and oily in here. We're going to do top and bottom. Okay, make sure you get it all around the ports. And be liberal with this stuff. You don't really get it in there, because you want these to be nice and clean and lubricated. And you're just gonna wipe it around in here, okay? And then take yourself a clean paper towel. You're gonna do a wipe on these. You're just gonna wipe out the oil. Now, when you wipe out the oil, that's what it's gonna look like. It's gonna be real dirty, all right? So try not to wipe it with the dirty side again when you do the bottom side, because you want to get all this out of here and get as much dirt out as you can, or debris. Once you've got most of the oil out, get it out of your ports, out of your intake, and out of your exhaust if you can. Okay? But once it looks like you've got most of the oil out of there, then you're going to take another clean rag, and you're going to do a final wipe down with a clean rag to see how they look. And I like to rub it really good like this. Really get in there and rub. And you see there's still a little bit of residue there, okay? So we're going to take the clean side here. We're just going to do it again until it looks nice and clean. Some of that could be coming out of the ports, but that's better. It's getting better. So we'll go and do the top side now. That's pretty clean here. Some of that's coming out of the ports, but all right, see that's pretty dirty. We're going to go around and do that again. And again, this is just to clean these cylinder walls out of the cross hatches to make sure there's no dirt and grime in there that can wreck our rings when we put it back together. So we're looking pretty clean now. As you can see, as long as they're clean and dry, you're looking good, okay? And then I just go through and wipe off any excess oil here, all right? And get these things ready to assemble. So you're gonna do that for both cylinders, all right? Now I'm not gonna make you watch me do both cylinders. And when we come back, we're gonna put pistons on and we're gonna slide the cylinders over the top. We're gonna torque them all down and we're gonna assemble this bad boy. Okay, so go ahead and get everything all cleaned up. I'm gonna do this next cylinder and when we come back, we'll assemble. Hey guys, all right, we're back again. Now we are ready to assemble this motor. Once everything is clean and prepped, we're going to take a few measurements to make sure that everything is good to go and that we don't have any incorrect sizing here. So if you have done this correctly, you have ordered your pistons first and you've sent them to the machine shop to get bored. Now the machine shop knows on Wiseco pistons that there's about a 3/1000 clearance and they'll bore them correctly with the right clearances, but I always like to double check just in case, okay? Now, if you're honing cylinders, then that's another story. You may have a little bit more clearance than 3,000. That's okay. It can be 3 or 4 thousandths. If it's much more than that, you may need to bore up to the next size, okay? But what we're gonna do is we're just gonna check our piston clearance. So I've already got my feeler gauges out here. I got 3/1000 here, so we're gonna put this, we're just gonna slide these in the hole. First things first, if the piston doesn't go down in the hole, then you got a problem. It's going to fit fairly tight. And you're just going to take your 3/1000 feeler gauge, and you're just going to slide it in there. And you can see here that mine slides in just fine at 3/1000. So we are good to go on the piston clearance, all right? That's the first thing you want to check. The next thing you want to check is your ring gap. Now, Wiseco has a little instruction thing here that tells you what your ring gap is supposed to be. It's, they say that it is 4 thousandths per inch of bore. Now these are 2.5 inch bore, so that means we're going to be at 10 thousandths. So when we put this in, and I've already got my 10 thousandths feeler gauge here. So what we do is we just place the ring inside, all right? And what you want to do is you want to get this as even in the hole as you can. Now I like to just use the piston to just kind of push it down in the hole a little way till about the second ring gap-ish. And you just want to make sure that it's, you know, even in the hole there, all right? So you can see that I've got the ring in there. It's pretty even in the hole all the way around. And then you just take your feeler gauge and just stick it. You see that little tiny, not the big gap right there, but the little tiny gap. See that? We're just gonna stick our feeler gauge in there. As long as our ring gap is not tight, if it's a little loose, we're good. So you can see that fits right in there, nice and loose, okay? Ring gap's great. So we can pull the ring back out carefully so you don't break it, and we are ready to assemble. Now, as far as gaskets go, there's a couple things to pay attention to, guys. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that base gaskets come in many different thicknesses, okay? Each gasket kit that you buy could have a different thickness of base gasket. So what you want to do, now I've already got these separated in. All my gaskets are separated into different bags by size. As you can see here, 20 thousandths. 20 thousandths is the factory thickness of a base gasket. You can get them thicker, you can get them thinner. Most of the times when you get an aftermarket gasket kit off eBay or whatever, they're gonna send you like 30,000 space gaskets or 39,000 space gaskets. Just check those, because if you get a 30,000 space gasket, or something bigger than 20 and your motor's set up for 20, you're gonna have more clearance between the top of the piston and your cylinder heads is going to give you more squish, which means less compression, okay? So we want to make sure that our gasket is the right size, and you can check that with a just a regular micrometer here, okay? So just when you get your gaskets, if you don't have a micrometer, just grab one, and you're just going to set it to inches, and just measure these to make sure that they're .020. You can use a different gasket, just make sure that your head is set up so that you have the right amount of compression. Like if you had a really highly shaved head, and it was really, you know, you didn't have any gap in here. You can see this is a stock head, so there's a nice clearance here between where the piston's gonna come in. You've got a nice amount of squish here. But if this was shaved real flat, then you might wanna put a thicker base gasket in there so that you've got more squish so that it's not, you know, detonating your motor and you don't have to run race fuel and those sort of things. And that's a different video altogether. But anyways, just make sure that you've got your correct gasket, and make sure that you're using a metal collapsible head gasket. There's a lot of stuff out there on eBay and Amazon right now, and they're just flat metal gaskets. Those do not work. They're junk. So make sure, if you can see this gasket, do you see how it's got the contours, it's got the collapsible, it's got the ridges in it. I don't know if you can see that on the video, but you want to make sure that you got one that's metal and collapsible so that your head will seal like it's supposed to. All right. So now that you've got your gaskets picked out, all your surfaces are clean, all your measurements are made, we're ready to start putting this thing together. So we're just going to take our gaskets, get a couple of these. Some people glue their base gaskets down and some people don't. I don't usually glue my base gaskets down if I've got good gaskets, okay? But that's just personal preference, all right? So we're just going to slide the base gasket on here. All right, make sure it's on correctly. Okay, you're gonna make sure that your keepers are in where they're supposed to be and they didn't come off in the cylinders, you know. All right, make sure everything's clean and blown out. All right, your wrist pins are in here. Okay, now we're ready to start putting pistons on. All right, so we'll take our piston. This is critical, guys. On these pistons, you see there's an arrow, all right? We're gonna put that always towards the exhaust side. Now, one other thing you will always know is that the two-stroke Banshee pistons are windowed. The windows go towards the intake, towards the carburetors, okay? So we should make sure we put those on correctly. So I like to lubricate everything really good with our two-stroke oil here. We lubricate our bearing. I put a bunch of oil in it, and it's okay to be, you know, just get this stuff all over the place. Put it in here. All right, and then we'll get our pin, wrist pin out. Gonna lubricate it really good. Okay, and then I like to lubricate where the pin goes through on both sides so it slides in nice and easy. And let the oil run all the way around. You can see, wipe it around with your finger, get it in on both sides. Okay, now we can just set it on here and slide the pin through. Get everything lined up, and it should, if it's all lined up properly, it should just really smooth, just go right in. Okay, now we want to put our wrist pin clips, if I can find them here. Oh, here they are in the bag. So these little guys, these little wrist pin clips, we want to put these in. Now I put them in a special way, so we're gonna pay attention to how we put them in. I also like to take, like I said before in the earlier video, I like to put a rag down in here so that our clips don't fly down inside the motor. Okay, so I take them with my fingers. Now I always like to have a set of needle nose pliers, and I like to have a little screwdriver here for putting these in. I take the edge And you see this little hole right here? What we're gonna do is we're just gonna stick that right in the hole, hold it with our thumb, okay? And then I like to take a little screwdriver here and just press it while you're holding it with your thumb. Put pressure on it, and put it right in. And then I just slide it into the gap, okay? Now, you see it's in, but do you see how this end of this clip is right here on the edge, right? We don't want that. We want to turn this clip so that the gap is maybe down here somewhere, okay? You don't want that gap right here. So what I like to do is I like to take my little dental pick and I just pull that. You can look right inside here as I do this. You're gonna pull this to the side a little bit. You see how that's pulled to the side right there now? It's out of the gap, but it's still in the gap all through here. And I take my screwdriver and I just put my edge of my screwdriver right on that one and I just push down. All right. Now sometimes it's kind of on the edge there. We just want to rotate that down. You got to fight it a little bit, kind of a booger sometimes. There we go. Okay, now we're good. So now we're past the little ledge here. We're just going to continue to rotate that down a little bit more. Okay, now we've got it. Do you see how the gap in that ring is now down out of the way of this slot here? That's what we like, okay? Now we're gonna do that for the other side as well. We're just gonna push our pin tight against the other one. It's gotta be tight so that your gap, you see your ring, the circlip gap is open. So now we can put it in. We're just gonna do the same exact thing on this side. All right, guys, back again here. We had a phone call. So we take our pin, we put it in the little gap there, being really careful. My fingers are slick from the oil. All right, push it there with our thumb, hold it. A little more right on the edge. And we're in. So, and then we're just gonna push it in with our screwdriver till it clips. It's clipped. It's clipped. Okay. Now we need to turn it. I know this is hard to see here, but all right. Get this out a little bit. Okay, now I'm just gonna push it. Oops, I didn't get it all the way. Sometimes these are kind of a pain, so you just gotta work with them here until you can get it. Gotta get it out to where it's not in the groove. There we go. Now we'll push it down a little bit more. Okay. All right, guys, take a look. Had to fight that one a little bit, but you can see that the gap is now down here instead of up here, all right? So then I like to just go back around. I like to just make sure, I like to push the ring, this little circlip, I like to just push it. You see how it moves? If it's in the groove, it'll move. If it's out of the groove, it won't move very good. So I'm gonna check this other side here. So, I'm just gonna see, does that move? Yep, that moves. All right, so we're in the groove. All right, so as long as you're in the groove good on both sides, then you should be good to go. Now, I'm not going to have you watch me through the second one. I'm going to put this other piston on, and then we're going to get ready to slide the rings on and then put the pistons over the top. So I'll see you back in just a second. All right, guys, back again. Okay, so once we have our pistons on, we've got our circlips in. We've moved the circlip around in there to make sure that it's in good and it's not going to fall out. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put our rings on the pistons, and then we're going to get ready. We're going to lubricate everything, and we're going to slide the jugs down over the piston. Okay, so come here and take a look at the piston rings. You see one side here is has no markings. And then one side here has a number on it, N150. They're all marked this way. I don't know that there's any rhyme or reason to which way you put them on, with this up or this down. I just like to put the numbers up. That's the way I've done it forever. As long as they're all the same, I think you're good to go. So that's just the way I've done it. Okay, so once we do that, we're gonna take the numbers on the piston ring are gonna be up, okay? So we're just gonna take the ring and we're just gonna gently slide it around the piston. Okay, it's going to fit into the first ring groove first, and then we'll pop it down to the second ring groove by just expanding it with our fingers right into the second ring groove here. Okay, now do you see this little pin in the piston? Okay, the bottom one's going to be there. Now if you come around here, the pin is here. Now they offset these so that this ring gap, you know, is offset. Right? The same on both pistons. Just make sure that your ring, when you go to slide the cylinder over, that those pins are right inside that gap. Okay? So we got the next ring, the top ring. We got numbers up. We're just going to slide it on, just like so. Okay? They slide on nice and easy. Okay? That's that. We'll do the second piston. Numbers are up. All right, they're on, and then numbers are up. We'll slide this one on. All right, guys, we are now ready to lubricate the pistons and the cylinders. We got our rings on. We're ready to rock and roll and slide them on. Okay, we'll do this side first. So I just take a liberal amount of oil. I put it on the ring here. I slide it all around, right? And then I wipe a little on the actual piston itself. You can try to keep it off the top. And make sure that the front here, this is the side that gets the hottest, the exhaust side. Make sure it's got a good amount of lube. I lube up the entire piston, guys. Okay? Especially the ring grooves. Make sure there's lubricant in the ring grooves. We'll slide that one down. Carefully. Alright, we'll do this side. Like I said, we use... It's not going to hurt to put a little extra oil on this thing. It's all going to come out on top anyways and get burned off as soon as you start it. Alright, so all over the sides, nice and clean, nice and lubed up. Alright, and then we'll do our first cylinder here. Just like when we cleaned it, in the beginning, we're going to take some oil. We're just going to lubricate the cylinder walls a little bit here. We're just going to wipe it around in there. I like to do top and bottom. This doesn't have to be crazy because you've already got a bunch on the piston, so it's going to, you know, just a little bit, just to make sure it's lubed. It's just going to push, the rings are just going to push this oil to the top anyways as soon as you put it on. Okay, so got that lubed up. Now, here's the tricky part. You got to hold the rings. Okay, make sure you're going to do the bottom ring, or excuse me, you're going to do the top ring first, pardon me. So you're going to line it up with the pin. The pin is right here, okay? Line it up and squeeze it around the pin. Then you're going to hold it. You're going to take, and you're just going to slide it over that ring on the bottom and over that one till you get to the second one, okay? Then you're going to find the ring pin again, which is right there, and you're just going to push it down over, and it should slide right over. If it doesn't slide right over, guys, something is wrong. Something's off. So then we're going to slide it nice and easy down. Okay, and just a little wiggle, and we're just gonna set it down on here, okay? Nice, and it's gonna look just like that, okay? Now, we're gonna put a couple of nuts on there, and then we'll go to the other side just so it hangs on. We're just gonna do these finger tight for now, and then we'll go to the other side so that we can rotate this piston down and get this one up so that we can put it on easier. Put these down so that the cylinder doesn't come flying up. Just finger tight, it's good. We'll torque everything down here shortly. Well, I can't get to these very good with my gloves, but now we're just going to rotate this down so that this piston is up. All right, now we're gonna do the same thing with this side. Okay, so we're gonna find the top ring pin. I better lubricate my cylinder here. All right, good to go. Now, okay, we're gonna find the pin. It's centered, and we're just gonna squeeze it together. Okay, slide it right over just like that till we get to the second one. Then we'll locate the second pin. It's right there. We'll squeeze it together, and voila, we're on. Okay, and like I said, just gently, we're just gonna slide this down. Like I said, if it doesn't go, if it's not nice and easy, pull it back off. You might have that ring might not be all the way pushed together, and if that's the case and it comes up inside that cylinder, it'll scratch the cylinder or it'll catch a port and break it. You don't want that. You want these to be nice and perfect, okay? So if it doesn't go right together easy, pull it back apart and just take a look. Okay, push that down. All right. We'll throw our nuts on finger tight. And we're going to wipe off any excess oil that's all over the place here from being crazy with the oil. All right. Now, I'm going to grab my torque wrench. When I come back, we're going to torque these things down to 20 pounds. All right. All right, guys. The cylinders are on. We got our nuts basically just, hand tight on here. So the cylinders are snugged down a little bit. And we're just going to rotate the motor over, as you can see here. We'll just rotate it over a few times. Make sure that everything is nice and smooth, okay? The other thing you want to look for is when you get to top dead center, right there, you want to make sure that everything is on a stock motor that doesn't have a stroker kit in it. You want to make sure everything is lined up nice and flat here, okay? You want to make sure it's not way up or way down. If the piston is down below the deck height here, it could mean that you've got too thick of a base gasket. Could mean maybe something's wrong piston, I don't know. So anyways, you just want to rotate this around a couple times. Make sure that everything rotates nice and smooth, and that you can see that the rings are pushing the oil up and up to the top. All right. We also want to make sure that our arrows are pointing the right way. The arrows pointing towards the exhaust, of course. And then now we're going to go ahead and torque down the cylinders. Okay, so the cylinder torque specs are 20 pounds on the cylinders, and I like to start at 10 pounds, go in a cross pattern all the way around, and then bump up to 20 pounds. Okay, so we're just going to start here. We're going to lock her down to 10, go across, come over here across, 10, 10, from here, 10, 10, 10, and 10, and now we'll bump her right up to 20 and be good to go. All right, start here, 20, 20, 20, 20. Okay, there's torque specs on these for a reason, guys, so just go ahead and follow the torque specs. You'll be good to go. 20, 20, 20, and 20. Okay, so now what I like to do is I like to make sure that I roll this to top dead center. I just wipe off any excess oil that's on the very top of the piston that it's pushed up. Just wipe it off nice and clean. And then once everything looks good here, oil's all cleaned off, roll these down a little bit, and we're ready to go ahead and throw the head on, okay? So one thing that's important with a collapsible gasket, some of the gaskets, you see where it says up right there, some of these, the factory Yamaha ones, don't have this. So what you're going to be looking for is, if you can, I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's a raised edge that goes on this gasket that goes around the cylinder, and then there's a raised edge that goes around the very outside. The raised part wants to be, you need to have the, on the inside here, it needs to be up, okay? So that it collapses down when you put it on, okay? Now this one's easy because it says up, so we just follow the directions. But on one that doesn't say up, just make sure that that little raised bump here on the inside is actually raised to the top. Hopefully that made sense to you. Okay, set that on there. When I put my head gasket on, these are 65.5 pistons. Anything over 66 millimeters will not work with a factory size head gasket. That's just an FYI. If you're doing 66, 66.25 or 66.5, you need to buy the oversized head gasket kit, okay? Because what'll happen is, you see how this head gasket is right at the very edge of the cylinder, okay? Right at the very edge. Well, if you got a bigger piston, this small head gasket here will not be big enough, and it will actually dent the side of your piston on the bigger pistons, okay? So anything 66 or bigger, you have to get an oversized head gasket. But we're good to go on this one because we're 65.5, all right? So our head is ready to go, so we're just gonna slide it on. Nice and easy, put our hose on. Gotta find the hose clamp for that one. We can put it on later. Okay, good to go there. And we're just going to put all of our nuts on. Now, if you're doing a stock head, you see all the numbers on here? 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. That's your torque pattern, all right? If you're using a cool head that doesn't have these on, just copy it off of a stock head. Do the same pattern. So, put these bad boys on. And when I do the cylinder head torque specs are 22 pounds, all right? And that's for a reason. So what I do is I start at 10, and then I go to 15, and then I go to 20, and then I go to 22. So it's kind of a lot of extra steps, but my head gaskets never blow and they never come loose. So that's the way I do it. Been doing it like that a long, long time. Seems to work pretty good. So we'll get these all on finger tight, and then we'll start running around, and we'll do some we'll do the torque on these. I'll just use these to get it down, like just hand tight, no torque on them yet, just hand tight on these, just so that they're all the same when we start. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, now we're going to reset our wrench. I use a 3/8 drive. If you use a 1/2 inch, it'll probably work, but it might get them a little tight. I like a 3/8 for this small stuff because it's real nice and accurate. So I'm gonna pop back down here to 10 pounds. All right, we're on 10. Now I'm gonna start with the pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. So we'll lock it down to 10. Whoa. Oops. 5. Don't skip. Bless you. Okay, that's 10. Now we're gonna bump up 5 more pounds to 15. Go back again, same pattern. All right, now we're gonna bump up to 20. When you get to 20, you see how easy I'm doing this? I'm being very gentle when I do this. I'm trying not to break a head stud off. I'm trying not to pull the threads out. I'm just being nice and easy on my 20 pounds, okay? All right, that's 20. Now we're gonna go to 22 pounds. I know that seems silly, but that's what it is. So now we're 22, it's just a little bit tighter. Boom. Sometimes you can hardly even notice it, but it is just enough. That's it, guys. Now, once you're all torqued down and everything's good, I like to just spin the motor over a couple more times. Make sure nothing's hitting. Make sure everything's nice and free. And it feels good. And that's it. Thanks for hanging with me. I know this was a long video, but that's a very important job to do. I hope that's helpful. And if you got any questions, be sure to hit us up. 541-419-6054. You can check us out online at www.redo-parts.com or on Facebook at Redo Banshee Parts and Accessories. We appreciate you guys, and hopefully this was helpful. See you next time.